I believe you should love what you do, no matter what it is. It's not all about making money, but if you love what you do, you're going to be enriched with you will be enriched with funds and money. It will come, and we're never going to be the richest guy in the world. And if you chase that, you're in big trouble. But if you love what you do, you're going to be enriched with happiness the rest of your life and understanding hope and kindness. And that's what we're going to talk about today, a lot of hope and kindness, and actually taking your business and understanding that there's a way to have a purpose in your business and have profit. Build that mission, and my good friend here today is going to really talk about that. But I've seen it with my life and with my business, and I built a lot of wild TV shows and the TV show Cheaters, and people go, "Oh my gosh, what you're doing with Cheaters is so you're exploiting situations in these relationships." But these people came to me in trouble and needed help. And many of them were suicidal. They were falling apart. Their families were falling apart. We were their last place to go. They just needed to know the truth. And many of them, I said, "You really already know the truth, but I'm going to help you find that." And we would use our funds and detectives to get them the truth. And then we would hit the cheater over the head with the dose of reality, right? And it was amazing that 90% of those relationships stayed together. They found out what they were doing is wrong. And many viewers would come to me and go, "Listen, what you gave me is I got to see, not that, I could be busted." You sure could. But they got to see the pain that they caused. And so we built a show that had a tremendous profit and following, but subliminally we were teaching people that it's wrong. You see the pain that you're causing. So we built a company that had a purpose, and it did make a profit. And that's okay to do that, right? And use those funds, because you can build a lot of wealth, but when we die, we're not going to be on our deathbed going, "Look at all the money I got." We're going to go, "Where are my loved ones? I want them close to me." That's what's going to be most important. So let's build that wealth and use it for good. And you can, and it is, it can change the world and make us all better human beings for humanity. And with that, I'm going to introduce my dear friend, Paul Hutchinson, because he built like a tremendous company. But what he did for humanity and is doing today is priceless. I'm so happy to have you here because it moves me.
Thank you, Tommy.
And it moves so many people. Early on as a young entrepreneur and businessman in real estate, did you always have a calling to help humanity? Or was this something that came a little later? How did this happen for you?
I'll go back to when I was in my early 20s. I had a mentor. He said, "Paul," he said, "if the average person donates about 2% of their income to making the world a better place, to charity," he said, "make a decision today that your number is not going to be 2%. It's going to be always at least 10%. Tithe everything that you have for humanity." He says, in fact, decide on something closer to 15 to 20%, and you'll see the windows of heaven open where there won't be room enough to receive it in ways that I can't even describe. Now, I was earning $2,000 a month at the time, right? And I said, "Can I just, this is why I want to be wealthy. I want to be rich so that I can be charitable." He said, "No." He said, "Be charitable now." He said, "You can call it karma. You can call it blessings from God. You can call it gifts of the universe. Call it whatever you want to. There's a higher power very interested in us doing good. And you will see everything open up and bloom if you choose to do that." And it changed my whole perspective. I thought, you know what? I want to be wealthy so that I can be charitable. I never realized I should be charitable so that I can be wealthy.
That is so spot on, because so many people I mean, so many people go, oh, I want to make a lot of money so I can give money away. And they forget, or they don't even think about, yes, is it going to be a little more difficult? Because when you're making $2,000 a month, all that money's going out. And you go, okay. And now how did you put that in your head? How did you reconcile that?
It was hard. I told him, I said, wow, if I give away 20%, I'm giving away $400. I have to live on $1,600 a month. That's going to be hard. I said, I'm going to work more hours. He said, well, in addition to your money, he said, I think that you should also dedicate a minimum of 10 to 20% of your time.
Thanks a lot, pal.
I know. I said, what about work-life balance? I've got to work, life, and charity balance. I got to help the world and my home and everything.
And you were single at the time?
Oh, I was married at the time. I got married super young. Okay. You know, I live in Utah, you know, by Brigham Young University. So they marry us off pretty early. Right? Yeah. And so yeah, I was married at the time, super young, and had kids already. I mean, my twins are 29 years old this month, right? And so I've got grandkids already. But yeah, I was struggling as a young father, trying to put it all together. But then I decided, you know what, I'm gonna do this. In fact, that scripture, the end of Malachi in the Old Testament says, "Prove me now herewith." What does that mean? Test this principle, Paul. Try this out. So I'm like, okay, God, I'm going to prove you now herewith, right? I'm going to test out this principle. And it's the only place in the scriptures where it actually has a very specific law and a very specific blessing that is attached to that very specific law. And it's simply give at least 10% to making the world a better place, and I will open the windows of heaven. So fast forward. So I started doing that immediately. I'd go downtown. I'd give money to some guy on the street that was, you know, I remember a friend that was with me. He's like, Paul, he says, you think you're really making a difference? You know, you're just giving that guy $20. What if he uses it for drugs? What is he going to use it for? And I told him, I said, I don't know. I don't know what he's going to, but I can't judge. Who knows that I couldn't have been him if I wasn't raised in a healthy home. Now, over time, I came to an understanding that I probably was feeding the problem, right, with that. And so I decided to focus my charity work with the truly innocent, you know, a child in a place that completely outside of any decisions that she made was in a difficult situation. So I served on many different boards. I was on the Make-A-Wish board of directors for 7 years before I got into the child trafficking world and anti-child trafficking. And but I tell people this, how does somebody become a partner, let alone a founder of a $20+ billion investment fund, where you're not a University of Utah dropout, right? The statistical probability of me being where I am is 0. The only way I can understand it is that promise I made with God early in the beginning, that I would be a good steward of the money and the resources that I had, and proving it right in the beginning by donating it when I only had a couple $1,000s a month, and amazing blessings happened in the growth of all of my companies along the way.
So, and you bring up God, which that's your soul. That's what you believe in. How about the guys that don't believe in God? How about the ones that there's so many other beliefs out there?
Of course.
And ones that don't believe in anything.
And that's why I say,
is that okay?
Absolutely.
How do they justify then?
It still works. Okay. They can call it karma.
There we go.
And that's okay. You know, they can call it the universal law of exchange, right? The universe is their God. Everybody calls God something different. You can call him Jehovah or you know, Heavenly Father or the universe. It doesn't matter. There's a higher power very interested in the highest and best version of ourselves and in us doing good.
Mm-hmm. And two, for many of us, our parents.
Yeah.
They invest in that, and that gets lost sometimes, you know, as we get older and greed and money comes in, and I want that new car because, you know, my friends got that, and I'm watching Keeping Up with the Joneses, right?
Yeah.
How do we stay true to what? Because, you know, your parents, they never teach you, oh no, step on that guy to get what you want, right?
Well, and two things happen there. Number one, tell me, it's especially with this business podcast, it's okay. It's okay to have I had a home with 10 bathrooms in it, 8 private suites, 3 kitchens, 7 fireplaces, and a basketball court in my basement, right? It's okay. It's okay to have that. It's okay to have 2 helicopters if that's what you really want. As long as you are, I had this beautiful lifestyle. I still do. But you can use that for good. I was the primary investor in the movie Sound of Freedom. Yes. I could not have put that money into the movie if I hadn't built a life of financial abundance in a way where I could afford to lose that. Because, I mean, investing in a movie is usually not the best investment, right? It had to be almost throwaway money for me in order to justify, hey, I'm going to put this here because I feel strongly about this cause. Now, fortunately, Sound of Freedom became the #1 independent film in the world last year, and at $270 million in the box office, which was a beautiful blessing. Yeah. But the reality is I wouldn't have been able to do that if I hadn't pursued success financially in my business. So it's okay to do that. It's okay to have that car. It's okay to have that vision board with a yacht and a jet and all of it. It's okay, as long as you don't lose sight of that 10 to 20% of everything that comes in being dedicated to making a difference in the world.
All right, let me ask you, as you're building up wealth and you're building this company and this fund, how much influence did having a mission, a purpose, help you grow that? I mean, how did it influence your business early on as you grew it?
Huge. I was in the we were raising money for real estate investments. And I remember in the beginning, I had to figure out how to get in the door with wealthy potential investors. And I wrote on a piece of paper, where do rich people hang out, right? And I remember writing down, I don't know, the $200 a month gym, the Hummer Club and whatever, the race, whatever. And then I wrote down charity. I realized that most of these ultra wealthy families had a charity that they supported. So I started going to a lot of these galas and created deep, meaningful relationships with very affluent families at these charity functions. Mm-hmm. And so it was beautiful. I was able to integrate my passion for making an impact together with building those meaningful relationships with people who would be investors in our fund.
Which builds business.
Absolutely. It's a win-win-win all the way.
You know what I found is that these big companies, so many of them want to do good. And they go, yes, we have a purpose, a mission, but they're not really implementing. They're just kind of throwing this thing because that is the thing of du jour, right? We have to do this now because this is what's important. But they're not implementing it to any success because what I've seen is that if you do it correctly, it's going to help everybody that works at the company. Yeah. Because everybody benefits. Yeah. And that's what, as I've studied, I see there's really very few companies, just a small percentage of companies that are really mission-based companies. And look at the world today. And I go, if we could just get to 20% of companies in the world being a purpose-based, mission-based, the world's a different place. Completely a different place.
Absolutely. And the companies can not only have a mission from a philanthropic, they can build the company itself with a true win-win-win philosophy. For example, with Bridge, when we get started, we thought, okay, we want to get into the multifamily, into the apartment space, but we don't want to be scumlords. We can create a true win-win-win all the way around. We can come in and find properties that are mismanaged by the banks because they didn't have the right team. We can come in, we're not going to put gold towel rods in a B-class neighborhood, but we can bring in the English as a second language program, the bookmobile. We can create a tutoring program for the kids that are there, making it a good place to live, which is a win for the tenants that are there. We saved the banks by giving them the liquidity they needed so they weren't going under during the 2008 crisis. We create jobs I had over 4,000 employees at my company that I started when I retired. So there's 4,000 families that are being fed there. We had we now have over 60,000 families that are living in the apartments that have a better place to live because of it. And we've averaged a 22.3% net return for our investors per year over a period of 15 years while I build it. So it's a win for them. And me and all of our partners had basketball courts in our basements, right? So it was a win all the way around. There's the problem with a lot of businesses is that people are trained in this law of a zero-sum game of scarcity. They think that in order for them to make $100 million, then $100 million has to be lost out of the pockets of other people, and that's simply not true. We truly live in a world of abundance. We can create value for ourselves and our employees and our investors and the tenants, and there's no reason for anybody to have to lose when you're thinking on a creative plane instead of a competitive plane.
Yeah, and thinking with a heart, right?
Yeah.
Because I see so many apartment buildings, and is your portfolio mainly lower income?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And so when I think about your business, these apartment complexes, lower income, maybe B, C properties.
BB minus,
And I don't know if I said that right.
Yep, exactly.
Because that's not my business.
Yep.
But how did you reconcile? How did you tell investors, well, we're going to invest in the people? How did that happen? Because so many people don't think that way. They go, let's give them less because it's going to cost us too much money.
Well, and number one, we realized there was a difference between, I call them ROE guys, not return on equity. There's return on ego guys, right? There's the return on ego guys. They want to have this opulent A-class apartment complex, or these nice condos they can show their friends. This is a building I own. We tell them, listen, we're not return on ego guys. We're
That's good.
We're going to have a return on creating real value for the people. We're going to find a B to B minus property that needs some love, that needs some help, that needs a better management team in there. And in doing so, we're going to create real value for the people and real value for you. Most investors, deep down, they want to be an impact investor. They want to make a positive impact in the world. So if we can show them, listen, we're going to secure your principal, we're going to give you a great return, and we're going to have a positive impact in the lives of the people that we're working with our tenants, then it's a true win-win-win philosophy. And I believe that mindset change is vital for us moving forward in the world to create a world of peace. We've got to get away from this scarcity mindset. We have to. I'm writing a book. I don't know the title yet. It'll be something like Compassionate Capitalism, or something like that. Conscious capitalism.
I like
and I my first chapter is Your Economics Teacher Lied to You, right? Because the definition of economics is, in many cases, the division of scarce resources, which is a fallacy. We have enough resources where every one of us could have all the food we could ever eat, all the houses the only problem is that we think we live in this world of scarcity. In fact, you go back 1,000+ years, back in even as late as the 1500s, you ask an astrologer, what's the definition of astrology? Just like you would ask an economist, what's the definition of economy today? You say, what's the definition of astrology? They would tell you, well, the definition is we're going to study how the sun and the stars and the planets revolve around the earth. And the very definition of what they did precluded them from understanding the truth, that the earth wasn't the center of the universe. Today, the definition of economics, the division of scarce resources, precludes people from understanding the truth that we don't live in a world of scarcity. We live in a world of abundance that can be created with our mind in a true win-win philosophy in business and success.
This is something I hear a lot of. Let's invest in Section 8 housing. Let's lower income housing. We can get in, the barrier of entry is cheaper. Let's get into that. And how do we make money? And so I want you to talk to them. I want you to talk about your philosophy on changing really the thinking on going into these properties to really service your customer, service the people that are renting from you, and how they can do better, right? You buy into one of these properties. What do they do? Is it a good investment? And then how do they make it better for the the people that will in turn make their property worth more and better for them?
Well, let me start by saying that I believe that the key to eradicating poverty is not showing pictures of poverty to affluent people. It's actually helping those who are in poverty see and understand that they indeed can live an affluent life. We need to give them that missing piece of belief. We need to help them, give them a hand up so that they can move forward. But I am not an advocate of just handing somebody a fish every day. That's feeding the problem, right? Instead, teaching them how to fish is important. So we did some Section 8 housing, but anything that was too overly subsidized by the government sometimes was feeding into the problem. So we have to make sure that as part of that, it's indeed giving them a hand up instead of a handout, right?
Because I think they'll be better people for that.
Absolutely. And so bringing in programs to help it, I would say this, putting yourself in the shoes, like really truly imagining yourself in the shoes of your tenants is the best thing that you as a property owner can do, and say, okay, what would be important to me? Here I'm maybe a new immigrant. I don't know English very well. I don't have the skills. Whatever it is that your typical person that's renting from you is going through, and say, how can I not only create a safe place to live, but how can I create opportunities for them to grow, which isn't going to cost that much. Literally, we went in and we found these properties where we had this huge office space in the front area for all of the people that were running the management. We said, hey guys, you don't need big opulent offices. We're going to put you in something smaller. We're going to take half of this space and put computers in here and bring in a tutor at the end of the day when these kids come home from school. Creating, and we would bring in English as a second language teacher. All of these programs that are going to create added value for the people that are there to give them that hand up instead of just the handout.
I mean, that right there would scare a lot of investors unless, you guys this was revolutionary. I mean, I don't know if this was going on in the industry, but it sounds pretty innovative to me to be able to do these things. And tell me how it made a difference.
Massive impact. I mean, we realized, in putting ourselves in their shoes, we realized that a lot of our tenants were primarily Hispanic because we were in some of the border states and stuff. And so we looked at these older apartment complexes, and they had big tennis courts with 4-foot weeds and cracks in them. Nobody was using the tennis. We're like, you know what? The Latinos don't play tennis that much, right? Yeah. They play soccer. So it was super easy for us to just put a little soccer, thing down in these tennis courts. It wasn't that expensive. We created mini soccer leagues, and all of a sudden, boom, this was a beautiful place for them to bring their families and everything else. So again, it created a true win. We would take a property that was 60, 70% occupied, put that love into it, making a meaningful impact for the people that were there, take it up to a 97% occupancy, hold it for a year, and sell it for a double on our equity investment, which was a true win for everybody all the way around.
Because you put yourself in the tenant's shoes.
Exactly. That's what that godlike empathy is, walk a mile in somebody else's shoes. What does that really mean? Well, walk a mile in their shoes. Ask yourself, what happens when they come home? What are their fears? What are their challenges? What are they wanting to achieve? It doesn't matter. This person's life and what's important to them is just as important as this guy who's living in a house with a basketball court in his basement, right? It's, how do I create a safe place for my kids? How can I have a meaningful growth for them and me and my family? How do I get better at what I can contribute to the world in my occupation? How can I get better at learning English? Whatever it is, creating a true win for them.
It was a win. It was a win for them, a win-win, as you said, for your pocketbook. But let's talk about you emotionally, as a humanity, as a person, seeing those differences in these people's lives. Yes, you made a profit. We can make a profit with a purpose. You just proved it. But even above that, how, as a human being, how did that work for you and your family? did that help teach your children something?
Absolutely. And that's the most valuable thing that you can create. It's not the big exit check from the, selling the property and whatnot. It's the meaningful impact you made in the lives of other people. Mm-hmm. That's what life's all about. When we die, we're not going to say, oh, look at this, company I built. It's look at the lives that I helped to impact because of the choices that I made in this life.
And it's as simple as taking a tennis court and knowing who your tenants are and just taking that out and putting this little soccer field in, because it's going to make the whole community feel good. Now they can go there, and all of a sudden I'm visually, I can see what would happen. And it's pretty simple thinking, but nobody's thinking that. Yeah. They're thinking, oh my God, how many toilets are they going to break? And it's that. Don't think the bad side. Put yourself in their shoes. And boy, that's the important lesson right there. Put yourself in their shoes. Yeah. I remember I was doing a movie. I think I was 20 years old in Los Angeles, and I had to. It was a rags to riches story, and I had to play this guy that was homeless, and then built a fortune, right? But he started out on the streets, and I went, okay, I'm this method actor. I'm gonna go do this thing, and I'm a 20-year-old kid, grew up in South Texas. I didn't know anything about the real reality of homelessness and how difficult it is in downtown Los Angeles, but I was going to go do this, right? So I got my clothes on and I went out there that day, and all I had was a bag, and I had a couple bucks in my pocket, and I was going to experience this for 2 weeks. I was going to live on the streets. Well, I made it about 8 hours. It got about 10 o'clock at night, and it was the scariest place, and it was cold, and it was truly a difficult place. I tried to wear that homeless guy's shoes and the mental health issues that so many of them live with, and it was scary. It was a tough place to be, and I made it 8 hours, and I realized, I've got to figure out another way to play this part and do it the best I can. But life can be cruel, and it can be tough. And yes, when you gave that homeless guy that $20, it may have been going the wrong way, but you don't know what he was going to use that for. Yeah. But you can find a mission. You can find something to change lives. You change these lives of these communities, which is so powerful and amazing. But what the guy told you, just tied 20%. I'm gonna make it tougher on you, and to watch that transition, and what you built, and how about your investors, these wealthy investors, and did you see a change in them when they saw the strategy work?
Absolutely. I mean, when we were giving back the returns on their investment, we would include with that return a breakdown of the positive impact that their investment was making. So they could see, hey, this isn't just a 20% plus return from this company. This is the impact. So then they can go show, this is that return on ego, not this beautiful opulent whatever. You can show your family, look, this is what we're earning here, and this is the impact that our investment is making in the lives of other people.
And they're going to want to throw more at you.
Absolutely, and they did
change the world. And that's the thing. If businesses and investors can understand, you can make a profit and still do good.
It was interesting, Tommy. Yesterday I was up in Arlington, Texas, just north of here, about 30 minutes, and I went to a place just to grab some to-go breakfast. It was a restaurant called Awake, right? And I went in there, and the guy that was taking my order was obviously somebody that the manager had seen was in a very difficult place. I mean, this guy's clothes, it was obvious that he came off the streets, right? Mm-hmm. but he was doing the very best he could. It was this African-American gentleman, and he was putting it in. He was brand new at it. And you could tell he was somebody that the owner had brought in out of the compassion of his heart.
Wow.
Excuse me. I was so moved by the compassion of the manager. And it was obvious that this guy was there just doing the best he could, and he was given a hand up instead of a hand out. Mm-hmm. So my breakfast was like $23, and I gave this guy a $20 tip, almost doubled the price of it, just directly to this guy. And I thank the manager for being a man that is adding value to the community while building his company. Mm-hmm. It was beautiful. So we can do those things every day.
We can. If you had to talk to these young entrepreneurs as you were coming up, you making $2,000 a month and trying to figure out how to feed a family, and I'm sure your wife probably said, "What are you doing? We got to put food on the table. Don't forget us." But if you had something to say to these even seasoned entrepreneurs, right, that want to make a difference. It's time. Let me make a difference. I'm going to put the flag in the sand. I'm going to draw the line. We're going to do this today. That's not like going to the gym and overworking out that first time.
Yeah.
And not being able, because you're so sore, and you go, yeah, man, I don't know if I can do that again. How do we make that step? What are you going to tell them?
I think that the first word is faith. You've got to have faith that you take that leap of faith. You take that step saying, you know what? We just barely made it last month with we spent every dime that we had, and don't start with 20, just start with 10%. Say, okay, I'm going to say, what did we earn last month? I'm going to take 10% of that and sit down with your spouse and say, okay, what do we want to do good with this? How can do we want to give it to the homeless shelter? Do we want to donate it to this? Go on to childliberation.org, and help us there. Whatever it is, find something you're passionate about and make that meaningful, conscious effort of donating that percentage to making a positive impact in the world, and test it. Just like prove me now herewith, all right? Test this principle. I promise that it works. That next month, you'll be like, oh, wow. That was less expensive than I thought, and that beautiful blessing came in, and now we have more to work with our 90% than we did before spending 100 on ourselves. Yeah. And take that leap of faith. But don't just, hey, write a check here, whatever. Make a conscious effort in figuring how that money is going to make a positive impact in the world, and those blessings will come.
It feels good too.
Yeah,
doesn't it?
Absolutely. And get your children involved. Say, you know what, we're going to take this. This is what we have to make a positive impact. Maybe we're going to find a family who doesn't have Christmas this year. And together with the kids say, okay, there's a 10-year-old, there's a 12-year-old, there's a 6-year-old in this family. We're going to go to the store together, and we're going to use this 10% of what we have, and we're going to find presents for this family. We're going to pick them out.
That's great. And that's an easy thing to do.
Absolutely.
To make that difference. And I know we're going to have to wrap this up pretty soon, but I can't go without talking about really quick, because I love that piece and I want to end with that piece, but I can't leave you with one of the most, earth-shattering, powerful things anybody can do. You're a guy, you're at the top of your game in business, you're doing so much for the world, and then you go, okay, I'm going to go risk my life. I'm going to go put it out all on the line here and really put myself at risk and help these kids in child slavery. And let's try to solve this problem. And you came along with some good friends that taught you how to protect yourself. But you put yourself in the line of fire.
Yes.
Tell me how you made that decision. Was it a tough decision, or you said, this ain't a tough decision?
Well, I got a phone call from our Attorney General about 10 years ago. And it was 2014. And a little over 10 years ago. And he said, Paul, he said, I know you've donated a lot of money to child-related charities. He said, I need to talk to you about something that's pretty dark. It's the fastest growing criminal enterprise in the world, and good people don't even know that it's happening. He started talking about human trafficking, in particular, child trafficking, which was, this is a difficult subject. This is why some people are like, I don't even know if I want to go see the movie Sound of Freedom, because that's hard for me to swallow. It is hard. But the only thing required for evil to flourish is for good people to do nothing. And so when I was invited to help not only help to fund a rescue mission of children in Colombia, but then was invited to actually play a role. I have a certain set of skills from a previous life that makes me somewhat safe in a dangerous place. And so, but he needed somebody who could come in and play the role of a wealthy real estate investor, which I was in real life, who, in this case, there was a trafficker that wanted to develop a piece of property into a child brothel sex resort, like a Jeffrey Epstein Island type of a thing. He needed a few $1 million to make it happen. He believed he could make tens of millions of dollars a year selling children to wealthy Americans. So the plan was for me to come in and say, hey, I'm willing to fund your real estate deal under one condition. We're going to have a party. I'm going to pull together a bunch of my rich friends. You show up with all of your existing inventory, kids, right? And if I'm impressed with what you have, I'll fund your deal. And our undercover operators, before I went, had identified that this guy had over 50 children in Cartagena, more than 100 children in these other cities that were tied to different trafficking rings there, that they wanted to take down all three of them, all three cities at the same time.
Oh, Paul, this is messed up.
It is messed up. It's messed up that this is even a thing anywhere. And I thought, at first I thought, yeah, I'll come in, I show up and in the movie Sound of Freedom, my character was played by Eduardo Verostegui. He's the producer of Sound of Freedom, and he's the wealthy multi-billion-dollar fund manager who decides to quit his job to go help rescue the kids. And in the movie, I'm like, no, I don't want to go. And it wasn't until they gave a picture of this little 11-year-old girl to my driver that changed my opinion. In real life, I immediately said, yeah, I'll be there. He says, can you be in Colombia in 2 days? Come in as a wealthy investor. He says, you'll have some Navy SEALs and Green Berets that are backups. He said, but then when I'm sitting there at this table with these traffickers this first day, and one of them leans forward and he goes, Pablo, I have a gift for you. I said, really, what's your gift? And he hands me his phone, and there's a picture of an 11-year-old girl on his phone. So in real life, I was already there when I saw this picture, but that galvanized my commitment. I thought, this is the first time I saw what I knew was a child, a virgin, 11 years old, being sold to. I thought, this is hideous that this even happens. And Tommy, the thing that changed my life forever, that completely transformed everything in my direction, my charity work, etc., was at the time of the party, a couple weeks later, we had these traffickers in Cartagena had brought 54 children. And at this one moment, I'm sitting on this chair. I'm this tall, just like you and I are right here. And they bring out, one of the traffickers says, Pablo, I have to show you the gifts that I brought you. And he goes in the house where the children are, and we could hear some of the children crying. They were so scared of coming out. And he comes out and he has 4 virgins. They were scared. There was one little boy that was brought in from Haiti, I believe. They gave him cocaine that morning because he was so scared it was going to hurt. What kind of effed up monster thinks that that's attractive? No, there was 3.
I don't even know how you sit there.
This was the most difficult thing for me on this whole operation, because now I'm literally in front of kids that are scared. The reason they were crying is they were so scared of meeting the men who were going to defile them, to rape them. And this little girl, the same one that he showed me on the picture, just a couple weeks before, this same little girl. She's standing in front of me. She has pigtails, ponytails that are braided. She has a little cat, a little pink kitty cat on her shirt. She had a bunch of makeup that they put on her, and that makeup was smeared because she had been crying. And I'm sitting on a chair. She's not much taller than I am as I'm sitting down, and she's standing up. And I could see directly into her soul through her eyes. And at that moment, I made a commitment to myself, to God, to that child, to children everywhere in that situation, that I was going to dedicate my life to eradicating that evil from the face of the earth. And then the most beautiful moment for me is after the agents came and stormed the party and arrested everybody, Child Protective Services came in with the children. And as they started trying to calm the kids down, they were singing and laughing with the children. And that sound of freedom,
Wow,
was the most beautiful sound that I ever heard. I started crying. I said to the agent, I spent my whole life making money, making rich people richer. I want to make a difference. How can I help? And that was the beginning of what now constitutes over 70 undercover rescue missions in 15 countries over a period of 10 years, which I stopped doing undercover right before the movie Sound of Freedom came out.
now you said he was building this place for wealthy Americans to come
Yeah.
abuse children.
Yeah.
Is that what it is? Americans?
Sadly, Tommy, it's the United States is the number one producer and consumer of child pornography in the world. And it's first world countries like the US, like Europe, that like the UK, who go to second and third world countries to do these horrific acts. And now, the border issue should have never been a political issue. This is a human trafficking issue. That traffickers are picking up children every single day in cities throughout Latin America and bringing them up. They're bringing the supply to the demand.
Wow.
Here in the U.S. And then we've got over 100,000 children a year that are undocumented, unaccompanied minors being brought across into the system.
How did this happen? How did we go? Has it always been this way, or is there just what's the mind of a deviant?
Let me tell you this: the very first rescue mission, I thought that I was going to see traffickers with tattoos on their necks and earrings in their noses and ears and whatever.
Yeah.
The first trafficker I saw was a businessman. He was in a white polo shirt, clean shaven, well spoken. The second was a beautiful woman working with a modeling agency. And I thought, these aren't traffickers. But over time, I realized, yes, indeed, they were selling children. And I realized over that 10-year span of doing undercover work, the common thread with traffickers and the perpetrators was not tattoos and earrings. The common thread was arrogance and greed and lust. And I had to ask myself, even me, we were doing undercover work. I was never doing anything illegal or never attracted to horrific things like that. However, I had to ask myself, I had to look in the mirror and say, Paul, how has arrogance and greed and lust influenced your life and the relationships you have and how you live your life moving forward? And I came to a realization with pure empathy, realizing the pain that I caused in my children when I cheated on their mom, right? I realized the pain that I caused in other families with these extravagant parties at my house where guys would come and half-dressed girls and whatever. And I realized that I was contributing to the toxicity in this world with my degree of arrogance, greed, and lust. Mm-hmm. And so unfortunately, when we live in America, and we have abundance everywhere, and they say that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. There are way too many people in America who believe they have this absolute power. They've got money, they've got wealth, and they can objectify women. They're the P. Diddy's of the world, the Jeffrey Epsteins of the world that are in that arrogance, greed, and lust energy that are contributing to this very problem.
And they're getting away with it.
Yeah.
Way too often. We see it now, the tide's changing a bit. But, oh my God, there has to be, I don't know the solution, except you knock one down at a time. You take one step
I believe we're close, Tommy. I believe that the world is tired of toxic masculinity. I believe that the world is now seeing that the movie Sound of Freedom, yes, 70 million people saw it, but I believe that it's just we just lit the fuse of something so much bigger. I think it opened up the doors for these conversations. I believe that humanity is on the cusp of a transition, of an elevation of global consciousness, of coming to that light of truth within each person, changing how we do business, changing how we view each other, changing this division and this hatred between us, between races, between religions, between income levels, and changing how, the very second that we take a woman and view her not as the divine feminine that she is, but as an object, with pornography and things, we start going down a dark road. And so I believe that humanity is ready for a change, and we're going to see it. We're going to see it in our lifetime. I believe this is just the beginning of something beautiful. And 5 and 10 years from now, we're not going to have child trafficking because we're going to fix the demand. We're going to help humanity heal before they pass their trauma on to other people.
So let's start younger in teaching our kids how to be better, kind human beings.
Yes,
and make a difference, because it will change the world. Hope, kindness. That's a good thing. That's a good thing to teach, even if it's just opening the door for someone and holding that door open, because it makes you feel good. You get that, the endorphins fire up just for something simple. But it's a way to start.
Absolutely. And helping people heal. The 1 out of every 2 women that you know have been a victim of sexual abuse at some time in their life.
Oh,
half of them, so 1 in every 4 women, it was as a child. Mm-hmm. Now, men, it's a little bit less. It's 1 in every 5 at some time in our lives have been a victim of sexual abuse. Most of them were as children. 1/4 of them was under the age of 10 years old in their own homes. And so many people are carrying these burdens. Now, God bless them. The majority of them grow up to be protectors, right? They still have low self-esteem and anger and promiscuity or anxiety, depression, etc., that are coming from it, but they don't pass that trauma on. However, 1 in every 3, if not given the help, the love, the healing that they need, become contact offenders. And so what we need to do in order to prevent that trauma from ever being passed on, we need to start having these healthy conversations, helping people heal in their adolescent years and their young adult years before they ever have children of their own, before they ever have nieces and nephews, that they can ever pass that trauma on to another child.
I see a big difference where people are now opening up, talking about mental health and talking about struggles they're having and the tough things that they've gone through. And I guess that's part of the change, right?
Absolutely.
You see celebrities coming out, and you see these apps that talk to somebody, and you can talk to them right here.
The simple act
you couldn't see before.
We couldn't. And the simple act of talking about it, so many men are like, I don't want to say anything about, what happened to me when I was 8 by my uncle. That'll make me less of a man if I talk about that.
Yeah.
No, it won't. You were 8. This was a horrible thing that happened from somebody who was carrying a lot of trauma of their own. If we can help that little boy heal, then the chances of that ever being passed on goes down to almost nothing. This is why a lot of what we do, we have the Child Liberation Foundation that helps with the children and the trafficking, etc., and fighting that. We have Liberating.humanity that has healing retreats, 4 and 5 day fully immersive retreats in Latin America, where men and women can come together and heal their relationships, heal their trauma, heal their childhood trauma, work through those things, because that way, if we can help the adults heal, we save millions of children from ever being abused in the future.
So as guys like me that create content, right, on television, we have a big platform to spread the message, right? I believe that some people it's going to be tough for them to go to a retreat. We have to slowly, subliminally teach them about being good and being better. And maybe there's some more content. I mean, I feel we do it by rescuing dogs and showing the impact on people's lives and veterans' lives is we get them, dogs to take care of them and to talk to. Those service dogs are so important. Dogs in general, for all of us, to have that pup at home to give you that unconditional love. But beyond that, creating content, and as I'll say to other content creators, have that subliminal message. Be part of making a change of something good in a small way. You don't have to hit them over the head, because some people are going to retract and go, yeah, those are feelings I don't want to bring up. But if we slowly show the good, right, maybe that can help. As just one guy, maybe we can. I'll never get to your level of the thousands of kids that you're affecting, but if we can start in our content making a little difference, I think.
Absolutely. We all need to recognize the ripple effect of every word, every action, every day.
Yeah. Like that stone in the pond, they said, those ripples. That little stone goes a long way. We have to remember that. Paul, that's so important. I've got to remember that, because I forget. Yes, even if I'm talking to one person, that ripple effect will go on. Man, this has been, what a blessing, and thanks so much for coming in and talking to me. And I'm welcome to Texas, but you're about to leave and go off to back, I think,
South America. Yeah, we've got some healing retreats coming up. We have over 5,000 presents that we're giving to children. It's the Gifts of Healing on the 20th of December. With safe houses and children that are in underprivileged communities that are at risk and whatnot. So we have some beautiful, beautiful projects going on with the foundation, the Child Liberation Foundation.
Well, I'm so proud of you, and it's been an honor getting to know you. And we learned some important things today. So many. But the underlying thing that I think we learned most was hope, caring, humanity, and you can make a profit and still have a purpose. That's so important, because we all want to get ahead in life. And so listen to what Paul talked about. If you want to be in real estate investor, and it's okay to have that property, that easy barrier of entry in the smaller, maybe rundown area of your city, you can do good by those people. Walk in their shoes, learn what makes them happy. Because as he told us, those properties were 70% full, but when they did make those changes, made people feel better, then they got 95% capacity in those apartments. It was great stuff. And God bless you, Paul, for all you're doing. And I'm so proud to have you as a friend.
Thank you, Tommy. Okay. Truly honored.
Me too.
Thank you.